What if the real reason many people struggle with money has very little to do with income, and everything to do with direction? What if wealth is not something you chase harder, but something that quietly responds to the way you live? The Bible offers an unexpected perspective. It does not glorify wealth, yet it does not ignore it either. Instead, it speaks about money as something deeply connected to character, purpose, and wisdom. When those foundations are strong, provision often follows, not dramatically, not magically, but consistently. This conversation is not about becoming rich overnight. It's about understanding why, throughout Scripture, provision seems to accompany certain ways of living. And once we see that pattern, it changes how we view wealth altogether. The Bible begins by shifting our focus away from money itself. It repeatedly reminds us that life is not sustained by possessions, but by values. When Jesus spoke about daily needs, food, clothing, shelter, he didn't dismiss them as unimportant. Instead, he revealed that worry and obsession distort our ability to receive what we need. He pointed people toward alignment first, explaining that when life is centered on what is right, necessary things tend to fall into place. This idea challenges the modern belief that financial security comes from constant striving. The Bible suggests something deeper. Provision often follows purpose. When a person knows why they are living, how they are meant to live, and what values guide their decisions, money becomes less chaotic. It finds its proper place. Scripture repeatedly highlights faithfulness over ambition. Not faithfulness in a religious sense alone, but faithfulness in everyday life, how people handle responsibility, time, work, and relationships. There is a consistent message. Increase is entrusted to those who prove dependable with what they already have. This is not about talent or advantage. It is about trust. Jesus illustrated this idea when he spoke about servants managing what was placed in their care. The ones who handled their responsibilities wisely were given more, not as a reward for greed, but as recognition of reliability. The Bible suggests that growth, financial or otherwise, is often a response to demonstrated stewardship. This brings us to effort. Scripture never promotes laziness, but it also never glorifies exhaustion. Instead, it praises diligence, steady, honest, intentional work. Proverbs speaks plainly about this, contrasting careless living with disciplined effort. The message is not harsh. It is practical. Where effort is consistent, results tend to follow. What makes the biblical view unique is that work is not just about survival. It is connected to dignity. The Bible presents work as meaningful, not merely profitable. When people treat their labor with responsibility and purpose, it creates stability, not just financially, but emotionally and socially as well. Wealth that comes through diligence tends to last longer because it is built, not rushed. Another important theme woven throughout Scripture is management. The Bible speaks less about how much someone has and more about how they handle it. Small resources are treated as a test of readiness, not a limitation. This idea runs counter to the belief that people need more before they can act wisely. Scripture suggests the opposite. Wisdom often appears before abundance. Jesus emphasized that integrity in small matters reveals readiness for greater responsibility. This applies not only to money, but to life as a whole. When people respect what they have, even if it feels insignificant, they develop habits that support growth. Waste, carelessness, and impatience are quietly destructive, regardless of income level. One of the most misunderstood ideas in the Bible is generosity. It is often viewed as loss, yet Scripture consistently frames it as flow. The Bible does not portray generous people as reckless, but as open. They understand that holding too tightly creates fear, while giving wisely builds trust and connection. Proverbs describes generosity as refreshing, not draining. This is because generosity strengthens relationships, builds community, and opens doors that isolation closes. Wealth in this sense is not just money. It includes opportunity, support, and goodwill. When people live generously, resources tend to move toward them through unexpected paths. At the same time, the Bible is clear about honesty. Wealth gained through deception is described as unstable. It may appear successful at first, but it lacks roots. Scripture repeatedly warns that dishonest gain fades, not because of punishment, but because it undermines trust, and trust is essential for lasting prosperity. Integrity protects wealth more than intelligence does. It preserves relationships, reputation, and peace. Without integrity, money becomes a source of anxiety instead of security. The Bible treats honesty as a form of wealth in itself, something that sustains a person even when circumstances change. Another theme that quietly shapes the biblical understanding of wealth is contentment. This does not mean lack of ambition or desire to grow. Rather, it means freedom from endless dissatisfaction. Scripture suggests that contentment stabilizes life. Without it, no amount of money is enough. When people are content, they make better decisions. They avoid reckless risks driven by comparison or pressure. The Bible describes contentment as gain, not because it replaces provision, but because it protects it. Peace becomes the foundation on which growth can safely occur. Wisdom plays a central role in all of this. The Bible places wisdom above riches, not because money is bad, but because wisdom determines how money is used. Wealth without wisdom often leads to confusion, conflict, and loss. Wisdom provides direction, restraint, and perspective. Scripture describes wisdom as something that benefits every area of life. It influences choices, relationships, and priorities. When wisdom leads, wealth becomes a tool instead of a burden. It serves life rather than controlling it. The Bible also emphasizes obedience, not as blind rule-following, but as trust in principles that have proven reliable over time. Many biblical promises concerning provision are connected to living in ways that honor fairness, responsibility, and care for others. These principles create environments where growth is possible. Obedience in this sense aligns a person with reality. It acknowledges that actions have consequences and that wisdom often requires restraint. When people live within these boundaries, they experience fewer self-inflicted losses and greater stability. Finally, Scripture consistently reminds us that wealth is not identity. Money is described as a servant, not a master. When people define themselves by possessions, they become fragile, easily shaken by loss or comparison. The Bible encourages a deeper sense of worth rooted in purpose and character. When wealth is placed in its proper role, it becomes useful instead of consuming. It supports life, family, generosity, and growth without controlling the heart. This balance is what Scripture ultimately points toward, not riches for their own sake, but a life that is whole, stable, and meaningful. In this way, the Bible does not promise that everyone will be wealthy, but it does reveal why provision often follows certain paths. Where purpose leads, where diligence is practiced, where integrity stands firm, and where wisdom guides decisions, resources tend to respond. As we continue reflecting on this, it becomes clear that the Bible never separates wealth from responsibility. It consistently connects provision with maturity. In many ways, Scripture treats money as a mirror. It reflects what already exists within a person. The way someone handles increase often reveals what they truly value. This is why the Bible places so much emphasis on the heart. Not emotions alone, but intentions. When desire for wealth becomes the main pursuit, it tends to distort judgment. People begin to measure success by comparison instead of purpose. Scripture gently warns that this kind of mindset leads to restlessness rather than fulfillment. The Bible presents a quieter alternative. It shows people who walk steadily, make wise choices, and allow growth to happen over time. Their lives may not look impressive at first glance, but they are rooted, and rooted things grow. Another important idea woven throughout Scripture is patience. Wealth that arrives too quickly often leaves just as fast. The Bible does not glorify shortcuts. Instead, it honors processes, seasons of planting, waiting, and harvesting. This rhythm teaches restraint and gratitude. When people learn to wait well, they gain perspective. They become less reactive and more intentional. Scripture suggests that patience protects people from self-sabotage. It allows growth to mature instead of collapsing under pressure. The Bible also emphasizes learning. Wisdom is not automatic. It is pursued. Proverbs encourages people to seek understanding as something valuable, something worth effort. This pursuit shapes how individuals respond to opportunities and challenges. Those who learn from correction, experience, and counsel tend to make fewer costly mistakes. Wealth in this sense is not just earned, it is preserved. Many losses described in Scripture are not due to lack of opportunity, but lack of discernment. Relationships also play a critical role. The Bible highlights the power of community, counsel, and trust. Wealth rarely grows in isolation. Connections built on honesty and mutual respect often lead to opportunities that skill alone cannot create. Scripture repeatedly warns against pride, not because confidence is wrong, but because arrogance isolates. When people believe they no longer need guidance, they become vulnerable. The Bible values humility because it keeps people teachable, and teachable people grow. Another important biblical theme is balance. Scripture does not celebrate excess, nor does it romanticize scarcity. It encourages sufficiency, having enough to meet needs and to help others. This balanced view prevents wealth from becoming destructive. When people chase excess, they often sacrifice peace. When they reject growth out of fear, they limit potential. The Bible's wisdom sits between these extremes, offering a stable path forward. There is also a strong emphasis on justice and fairness. Scripture speaks clearly about honest scales, fair wages, and ethical dealings. These principles build trust in society. When fairness is present, systems function better and opportunities expand. Wealth that grows within just systems is more sustainable. It strengthens communities instead of exploiting them. The Bible's concern is not simply individual prosperity, but collective well-being. Another powerful idea found in Scripture is gratitude. Grateful people tend to recognize opportunities others overlook. They approach life with awareness rather than entitlement. Gratitude keeps success from becoming hollow. When gratitude is present, wealth feels like a gift rather than a burden. It becomes something to steward, not something to defend. This mindset reduces fear and increases generosity. The Bible also acknowledges seasons of lack. It does not shame them. Instead, it offers wisdom for navigating them without losing hope or character. Many biblical figures experienced times of uncertainty before stability emerged. These seasons often refine judgment and priorities. They teach people what truly matters and what does not. When provision returns, it is handled with greater care. Throughout Scripture, wealth is never presented as proof of righteousness, nor is poverty treated as failure. The Bible avoids these simplistic conclusions. Instead, it focuses on faithfulness in every condition. This perspective removes pressure and comparison. It allows people to grow at their own pace, guided by wisdom rather than competition. One of the most freeing ideas in the Bible is that security does not come from possessions alone. Scripture reminds us that circumstances change, markets shift, and resources fluctuate. Placing ultimate trust in wealth creates vulnerability. Instead, the Bible encourages trust in principles that endure: wisdom, integrity, diligence, generosity, and contentment. These values remain valuable regardless of economic conditions. When life is built on these foundations, wealth becomes supportive rather than central. It enhances life but does not define it. Loss becomes manageable, and gain remains meaningful. In the end, the Bible's message about wealth is not complicated, but it is profound. It teaches that money responds to order. Where life is aligned, resources often follow. Where chaos rules, wealth struggles to remain. The biblical principle that attracts wealth is not about forcing outcomes. It is about creating conditions. Just as healthy soil supports growth, a life shaped by wisdom supports provision. This approach removes anxiety and restores clarity. It invites people to focus on becoming rather than accumulating. And in doing so, it often leads to a life that is not only provided for, but deeply fulfilled.